Hello, everyone. I am Xue Chen Aksa Song. I can't help to speak English. I can't help speaking English now because sometimes I like to speak Chinese, but some people say, why don't you speak English or have the English subtitle? I'm a little bit lazy with the subtitle, so now I directly speak English. I just like to say something about the Communist Party of China because yesterday it was July the 1st, and that is the 100th anniversary of the founding of the Communist Party of China. So far in the world, the CPC has become the largest party in the world, and the time is also long, 100 years. Compared with the Swedish Social Democrat Party, it is established 1889. So it is 11 years earlier. But Communist Party now is the largest one because the number of the party member is amounted to 95.14 million. So it's more than 8% of the Chinese population. And many people don't understand why China has a long-term CPC governance, and also why the Chinese CPC can sort of lead China so long and so well. In fact, in China, the party member is not the same as in the West, like in Sweden. In Sweden, everybody can become a member as long as you can vote. You have the right to vote. You just have the right to become a member. But in China, the party member is not an ordinary member. It's not a kind of just by right. It has a little bit higher requirement. So not everybody want to become a party member will become a party member. But how can you become a party member? According to the inside news, actually, or information, China has 5 million activists. That means they have applied to be a party member, and they are likely will be recruited as member sometime later. And then at the same time, they have about 20 million people who have applied to become a party member. So CPC has a big pool of people who want to become a member, but not everybody. Less than 10% can become the member. So that means as a member, first you have to free will, you like to join, but to be a member doesn't mean that you just get all the rights and all the benefits. You have to get obligations. And the first thing is you must agree to, you must be prepared to be sacrificed, to the country, for the people. When there is a conflict between your self-interest and the country's interest, then you have to give up your own interest, and you should follow the country's interest, or you do things for the benefit of the country while sacrificing your own. And this rule has been very, very strict in the old days. And to be loyal is very, very important. In 1921, July 1st, 1921, in Shanghai, there were just 15 members, including Chen Duxiu, Li Dazhao, Qu Jiubai, and Mao Zedong. They had a meeting, and on halfway, they said there were actually enemies, or some people want to disturb them. So they have to go to a boat in Jiaxing, near Zhejiang province. And in that boat, they complete the meeting. But that meeting just declared the state that the establishment of the Communist Party of China. So Chinese are always very encouraged and inspired by this. Why? Because that time we only 15 members, and now you have 1.4 billion people, or you have nearly 90,000, 90 million. You have 90 million members. So whenever we establish a new organization or do something with the beginning, we just take CPC as an example. You see, it's a small spark and it becomes a big fire. So if you make efforts, if you are persistent enough, if you have a confidence, if you believe yourself, then you will do it. You can do it. So CPC become an inspiration for many people. And it's not without sacrifice. They were killed. Many members were killed during this process. It is like since 1921, then you have 1924, the National Party was established, and they take over the Chinese government from various warlords. China has this national revolutionary, national revolution. Then, Sun Yat-sen from South China come to Wuhan, and from Wuhan to Beijing. And even though the Manchurian Empire collapsed, there are many different warlords in Beijing, including northeastern warlord Zhang Zuolin. He became the prime minister for 1 year in Beijing in 1929, before he left for Northeast and was killed by the Japanese. So China has many, many different parts of forces and become very divided, not united. No one nuclear power, so or core power. And the Communist Party was very small also, but they have a great ideal. The great ideal is to establish a united new China, and it was inspired by Lenin, the Russian or Soviet Union revolution. So with the support of the Soviet Union also, the CPC actually getting very formal and has its charter and has its policies and has its democratic meetings all the time. Without this regulated meetings and discussion, nothing can be done. And but the contradiction between the National Party and the Communist Party has been parallel all the time. The National Party, first they are cooperating in the revolution, but soon, once Sun Yat-sen became the premier or president, become the president. Sun Yat-sen died. When he died, then the republic collapsed. And Chiang Kai-shek take over. And Chiang Kai-shek is a military man. He's different from Sun Yat-sen. Sun Yat-sen is, we call him the father of the republic. He's respected by both the National Party and the CPC. But Chiang Kai-shek is a National Party, and he emphasized more in his military force. And unexpectedly, 1931, the Japanese invaded China. Japanese invasion of China, especially Northeast China. So the three provinces lost, and Zhang Xueliang led his forces to Shanxi and met Mao Zedong, met Zhou Enlai, and they agreed to fight against Japanese invaders. So Zhang Xueliang carried out we call the coup d'etat. So they house arrested Chiang Kai-shek and forced him to agree to fight against Japanese. And this is already 1936. So for 5 years, actually, the Red Army was from beginning a little victory, but then was defeated. Was a lot of setback from Jiangxi, Jinggangshan, and then they have to retreat to the west, to Guizhou. All the way escape from the National Party's besiege to survive. So by the time when they arrived in Yan'an, actually they become stronger and more clear that actually in Zhunyi already they set up the power for Mao Zedong to take over the power. So Mao Zedong became the real commander, real chairman for the Red Army. And from then on, every time they get a victory, all the decisions were right. Before that, they were many times, they were almost wiped out. And so in Shanxi, Yan'an, they begin to fight against the Japanese. So from 1937 to 1945, 8 years fighting the Japanese. And after that, the Red Army come to Northeast. So the two parties didn't get real peace. The CPC prepared in two ways. If the government, national government, want peace, then they get peace. If they want to fight, they'll fight. But in the end, they fight each other. And Chiang Kai-shek want to beat the Liberation Army in Northeast, but they end up failure. Chiang Kai-shek's failure is not just one day they just get failed. It is over the years, when the Red Army won the heart of the farmers and workers, and their revolution won the hearts of the people, and even the national army. I feel the Communist Party led the army quite good, especially when I say sing the song 三大纪律八项注意 with the 3 disciplines and 8 attentions, like 革命军人各自要牢记三大纪律八项注意，第一切行军指挥不得一致才得胜利，第二不拿群众一针线，群众对我拥有喜欢，第三接人动就坏了当而归还前面失掉，第四若把东西送来了，造价赔偿不再半损耗，第五不许就是说不拿群众一针一线，这一条吧，就是等于说so you should not take the people's things. You know, in the past, when there is war, the army always grab people's food, grain, anything. Whenever they come to the village, they just harm the people, and people just hate it. But the Chinese army, Red Army, don't do that. They are not allowed to do that. And so they borrow and they return. But I tell you one story, like when the Japanese go over, went to our village, and they just stay there overnight, and they said they borrow some flour from my family and other families, and asked my grandma to make dumplings for them. My grandma make dumplings for the whole night and just feed them. They didn't give her even one dumplings, so work free of charge. And when they left, my grandma said, you should return my flour. And they said, who borrowed the flour from you? Go away. So she was refused. And they refused to pay back. So later, the villagers said, how dare you ask for that? They will kill you. So this kind of army, of course, people hate it. But the Red Army is not the case. They just borrow things and they return it. They don't disturb you that much. And in the end, they said that their purpose is to get the land for you. So people really agree with them. So Chinese Communist Party really has a good, solid base in like a Jiangxi province, Guizhou province, Sichuan province, Shanxi province, and then with this northeast Liaoshen战役, Shenyang and Jinzhou campaign, then Heilongjiang, Liaoning, Jilin province all became solid foundation for the Communist Party. And Northeast China became a state-owned enterprise focused areas also. After liberation, there is a lot of heavy industries deployed in Northeast China. So Northeast China has contributed to the People's Republic of China. And that's true. That's starting from the liberation. When the liberation war ended, Northeast China totally become under control by the Communist Party. And then China has another, the Tianjin war, and then in Beijing, they through negotiation, peacefully liberated Beijing. And then we liberate the southern China and Xinjiang and Tibet especially. Tibet in the past it used to be a slavery system. So with the chief and Lama and all many people, they are the serf of the Lama. So they don't have any human rights in the old days. Even their life belonged to the chief. Only through the democratic revolution, then every person become a citizen. And they have their own rights, they have their own land, and they have their own property. So that is a real great progress for the human rights situation in Tibet. But of course, for a long time, they live a poor life. And that is the same everywhere in China. Before the reform and opening up, before we implemented the market economy, it was, at the beginning, it was we call a primary socialist system, or it's primitive communism. We are too equal, but we have very little material. We don't have much property. We emphasize too much about the distribution system. So we are equal, but we have little. So with the leadership of Mao, he actually united the party, united the country, united the people. And his greatness is embodied also in the Korean War. So in the Korean War, with the American-led UN troops come to Korea, and North Korea asked China help, and China in the end sent the volunteers army there. And that's also a very moving story, because China really help North Korea. So there's a beautiful song there. 一条大河波浪宽，风吹稻花香两岸。我家就在岸上住，听惯了小宫的号子，看惯了船上的白帆。Okay, I have to go for an appointment, so I come back in an hour. Okay? Hey.